So first things first. So two podcasts ago, we had a kind of rapid fire Q&A part to it where we were asked about all sorts of different dog topics. And one of them that came up was pet medication, right? So there was a lot of controversy on it. It was getting posted around everywhere. Everyone was all up in arms about it because I did do a little bit of veterinarian bashing in it.
You did.
Whatever. For the most part, everything that I said in it holds true in my opinion, but I wanted to clarify a couple of things and my stance on it and clarify a place where I think I definitely came across wrong and have kind of pushed my opinion where I think the general public looked at it and thought I was saying things that maybe I wasn't necessarily meaning, and re-clarify that general stance. So one of the biggest things people gave me a really hard time about, as I said at the very beginning, the pet medication industry is a very lucrative industry that is making a lot of vets rich, right? Now, one, I hold true that is a very lucrative industry, and I think that that is 90% of the reason why it has gotten pushed so hard lately, right? Yeah. But I do not know that it is directly making vets rich, right? That is not. That is likely not what is even happening. As a lot of people even brought up very good points as far as a lot of these prescriptions that are being written maybe are being fulfilled initially by the vet at that initial visit, but then are getting pushed off to say CVS, Walgreens, Giant Eagle, places like that. But the point holds true that the pharmaceutical companies as a whole are making a lot of money off of these medications, right? And frankly, a lot of them are the same companies that are making human medications that they're also getting equally rich off of. I stumbled across something the other day. Pfizer, the company that is making the corona vaccine right now, is in the pet medication industry as well, right? Kind of interesting to me, right? So obviously we have all this controversy with the human medication world and, how much it's getting pushed way more intensely right now than it used to be, how much money some of these big pharmaceutical companies are making off of it and stuff like that. And you look at the fact that, I don't remember the exact number, but it was like a $3 billion or something like that industry of pet medication as well. You better believe they're going to start channeling that as well because that's a huge stream of income that they can be getting, right? Yeah. So it's not necessarily the vet's fault from the standpoint of the amount of money that is being consumed, I don't think. I think the vets do hold some fault still with all of this, which we'll get into in a minute. But it's a very interesting top-down progression that I see of these pharmaceutical companies are pushing to the board of veterinarians, right? So there's a lot of expos and stuff. I read an article the other day talking about a lot of these pet expos going on. These pharmaceutical companies will set up these big displays and they'll do these borderline like game show type things to try to get people engaged with them to sell their products off for them. There's a lot of, I've heard firsthand from people that are in the veterinarian field that a lot of vets will get taken out to dinners and, get kind of little like kickback gifts and stuff like that from these companies and stuff as a little, oh, thank you for pushing our product kind of thing. Right. So from the top down, it's getting pushed very, very heavily. And ultimately, somebody is getting very rich off of these medications. Right. Yeah. I'm sorry for saying that it is the vets directly. I don't think it's the vets directly that are getting rich off of these things, but I do think it's kind of trickling down to some extent from my conspiratorial mind with this kind of stuff. Right?
Yeah.
So that's one part of the equation here. Now, my stance remains on the fact that I think 99% of these pet medications are kind of bullshit, right? They are getting prescribed and pushed from the top down because, let's look at this, right? We got the pharma companies at the top here, right? They want to sell pet medication because they make a lot of money off of it. These pharmaceutical companies go to the board of veterinarians or the American Veterinarian Association or whatever the acronym for it is, right? They push it to them. The board of veterinarians makes this stance that positive-only training is the only way of training, right? Because they're pushing that positive-only training is the only way of training, they're not seeing results with their training, which means that they need to resort to medicating for things like jumping, excessive barking, digging, all of these things that are not medical-related issues. They're just training-related issues, and if you're doing a proper balanced training program, you'd see those things go away immediately. They're pushing that down to the veterinarians on the battlegrounds of sending them out to your average owner, right? And it goes down all the way that way, right?
Yeah.
So in my opinion, that is kind of the progression of how a lot of this stuff is working. I could be totally mistaken about that, but that is how I see this happening. And the fact that I see so much where these vets are giving all of this unsolicited training advice. And, you know, a couple people brought up, oh, well, the medication is a last resort. You know, we don't like to give it out. The owners come in looking for quick fixes, which is why we do it and stuff. I understand that, right? Take a breath here. I understand that. And I'm not saying all vets are doing this, right? There are a select number of vets in the greater Cleveland area that I have so much respect for. And I literally recommend to every single one of my clients, and I trust with my personal dogs, and I think are doing a fantastic job, right? And those ones are the ones that understand that if somebody comes in looking for quick fixes or looking for advice or whatever it may be, they'll refer them out to training programs. They understand that there are people out there that specialize in those things that will be able to help them significantly better than they do, right? But a good majority of them, I feel like, fall into this place of like power, right? And I think that's what it is here is people look at their vet as like the person that is going to help them with all of their dog's needs, right? Your general dog owner that doesn't know much about dog training, because I was this person when I first got a dog, right? They look at the vet as like, you know everything about my dog's behavior, why they're doing this. I mean, there's a reason why people go into the vet and they ask their vet all of these different questions about, oh, my dog's doing this, my dog's doing this, my dog's acting this way. And I think that the vets get into this position of they're in a very influential, powerful position, and they can go about pushing all of that stuff on them even more because it seems like they know the answers then for it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a very weird, dicey industry where it's not 100% of the vets that are doing it. And I understand that. And listen, I don't know the people directly that were commenting on my post, but you very well may work for one of the great vets that don't do that and do good work and refer people out where they need to and aren't falling to this kind of corrupt top-down system of medicating these dogs for training-related issues. But a vast majority of them that I see do, right? Yeah. And a vast majority of those ones that I do, not only do they try to give these solutions in places they shouldn't necessarily give these solutions, but then they get very, very, very intense about that's the correct thing to do. And if you're not doing it, then you're wrong and you're abusing your dog and you're going to have all these other problems because of it, right? Then you start spinning into some of these vet behaviorists, right? And same deal. Somebody was commenting on my post like, oh, the animal behaviorist of Cleveland or whatever it is, they're out doing all of this fantastic work and saving dogs and this and that. When I was in Columbus, right, when we were doing training down in Columbus, Columbus has like one of the top vet behaviorists in the country, right, at OSU, right? And every single behavioral case that we would get in, virtually every single one of them, right, had been to this vet behaviorist. They charged like $500 to $750 for their initial consultation where you basically sign a book of paperwork of all the things your dog is doing. You don't actually meet with the vet for any of that. They don't actually talk with you or see your dog or anything. And then you walk into a room, they look at your dog, and they give a diagnosis. They're like, you know, your dog has separated fear, uncomfort, anxiety, aggression, and they have all these ridiculous things that they'll diagnose your dog with. And then they just say, okay, cool, well, we're going to put him on this, and this, right? And we recommend that you maybe do this like positive only training program here, right? And then you want to go do another consultation with them. Oh, those medications aren't working because guess what? You're not actually training the dog. You're just medicating them. Oh, well, you're going to have to pay us another $500 to come in, and then we'll prescribe you a couple different medications. And it's just this cycle where it's like at what point do you realize, like, you look at the dog and you look at the owner and you look at their overall relationship that they have with each other, right? And you see this is so disconnected and out of tune, and everybody's all over the place, and the dog's freaking out, and the owner has no control over them, and the owner's doing all of these things that are making the problem worse, and et cetera, et cetera. And your first thing you do is you prescribe medication, right? I would even have less of a problem with this if you know, and again, like I'm not into the positive only training. I don't think that it's going to solve your behavioral problems and stuff, but I would have less of a problem with this if they said, listen, we're going to make you go do this training program first, this positive only training program over here first. We're not going to prescribe you with anything. We're just going to make you go do this, right? Once you've completed your program and you've passed that, we will then prescribe you the medication for your dog to be able to then help a little bit more. Because what I had said in the original post that we did last time is the medication in the couple of places I've seen owners keep their dog on it is used as a supplement past the training, right? So you've trained the dog, you've checked all the boxes that you're not creating any more problems, you're not making anything worse, you can communicate effectively and efficiently with your dog, but you still need to take a little bit more of an edge off, right? Say with like a one-time trazodone in situations where your dog gets really, really hyped up. Like when I flew with Vinny on an airplane, because I didn't know how he was going to do on it, I gave him a trazodone. It's like, hey, you know I can communicate very effectively with you. I know I can keep you in the down, this, that. But listen, if we're a couple 1,000 feet up in the air and you start having a little meltdown over this, I need to keep you a little bit calmer. So I gave him one of those, right? I have no problem with that, right? And I think it can be used delicately in places like that. Or listen, and I'm not even into this, but you train your dog and your dog is just hype all the time. And you have your dog on a small dosage of Prozac or whatever it is to help with some of those, you know, those kind of jitters and stuff that they get here and there, whatever. It's your choice. But, you know, most of that you could actually spin into how much of that has to do with just not understanding your dog well enough. And like you probably got yourself a neurotic, anxious border collie breed or healer breed or this or that. And you wanted the lab that would just sleep all day. So now you're just going to medicate the dog to try to turn it into the lab that just sleeps all day. You know what I mean? Like it's just, you start getting into those types of conversations where how many of these cases of actual medication is that actually the problem? Right? I could literally go down a list and name dog, that all were on medication and what they were on the medication for and explain why it wasn't a medical issue. It was a training issue and why the medication and the things that they were trying to medicate were just breed specific traits that those dogs had. Right? So it's just such a dicey industry, and that's why I have such a problem with it. And I think from the top down, it's getting pushed because it's making people a lot of money, right? And then I think from the bottom up, it's getting pushed from this power standpoint of these vets being in positions of influence, not actually being able to help the dogs with these things because they're not trainers, they're vets, right? And it creating all these problems because of that. And then, like I said, you get into the vet behaviorists, which I think, frankly, are just acting extremely predatory over a lot of this kind of stuff because those ones I know for a fact are making insane amounts of money. Yeah. Right? Maybe not off the medication directly, but off of their little consultations and their follow-up visits and this and that where they're literally just not doing anything. I mean, I've read some of the reports that have come out and it's been like, you should euthanize this dog. This dog has this issue and should be on X amount of medication per day. This dog should be euthanized, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. When all those dogs, that wasn't the case. They just were being misunderstood and not communicated with effectively enough. Yeah. What do you think, Josh?
I mean, it seems like, first of all, the biggest thing is the behavioralists and all this medication is essentially just a big Band-Aid. Instead of solving the problem, you're just kind of covering it up.
I would agree with that, you know, and I think a lot of it comes from lack. I think a lot of it doesn't necessarily come from people intentionally trying to wrong-do others. Yeah. Right? I think it's probably coming from a good place, but it's coming from an uneducated place of not being aware of other solutions that are out there, you know? Yeah. And just like I said, not having the education to understand that like the medication alone isn't going to solve the problems. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, even if you as a person need to be medicated for things, there's lifestyle changes you have to make in order to improve yourself as well. Yeah. You know, that alone will not solve your problems.
No, exactly. And I think, you know, you make a good point where, you know, there's a time and a place for medication sometimes. Like you're not having this complete stance against it, which I think some people took last time.
Sure. But I mean, I'm pretty against it. Yeah. Right? Like, don't get me wrong, right? Like there are very, very few cases I think that it's appropriate in. Yeah. Right. But yes, listen, if you go through the proper avenues of working through the roots of the problems and then you choose to do it on the back end, that's your choice, is kind of what I'm getting at with it. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know what else to say to y'all that might have been pissed.
I think that
I'm ruffling
clarifies it.
feathers. I'm sorry if you took it the wrong way. You know?